Bonjour et bienvenue à toutes et à tous. My name is Ryan Waldron. I'm Director of Cultural Programs at the Alliance Française de Chicago, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the fourth lecture in this winter's Zoom series on the making of the great museums of Paris from 1900 until today. Following our previous Zoom series during the winter of 2024, tracing the history and heritage of the extraordinary museums that were established in Paris during the Revolution and continuing through the end of the 19th century, we continue the story over the past 125 years with today's lecture by Béatrice Grenier about the Fondation Cartier, the first of the great museums of modern and contemporary art created in Paris by private foundations over the past 40 years, and the latest to move into spectacular new premises just 3 months ago. But before we get started on our travel through time, a reminder that we're using a Zoom webinar format. This means that you can only see the guest speaker, but please do use the chat to communicate with all participants. Give it a try now and tell us where you're listening from. We also ask that you use the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen to ask questions. They'll be answered by our speaker at the end of the talk. Please note that we will also send you a recording a few days after each talk in the series. This program is presented by the Alliance Française Miami Métro and the Alliance Française de Chicago with communication support from the Fédération des Alliances Françaises USA, which oversees the more than 100 chapters of the Alliance all across the United States. Now, a few words about Cher Russell. Russell Kelly was the curator and moderator of the past 5 winters lecture series about the history and heritage of France. He's lived in Paris for 30 years and is the author of The Making of Paris, the story of how Paris evolved from a fishing village into the world's most beautiful city, Lyons Press 2021. His new book, Walking Through the Ages of Paris, 10 Historical Walking Tours Through the City of Light, will be published later this year. À vous, Russell.
Thank you very much, Ryan. It's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Béatrice Grenier. Béatrice is Director of Strategic Projects and International Programs at the Fondation Cartier for Contemporary Art, which in October last year, 3 months ago, moved from its former steel and glass headquarters on the Boulevard Raspail, designed by Jean Nouvel, to its new headquarters in a 19th century building on the Place du Palais Royal, just next to the Louvre, whose interior was totally redesigned by the same Jean Nouvel. And last year, Béatrice co-curated the inaugural exhibition at this new headquarters, their new headquarters, dedicated to the collection of the Fondation Cartier. She also curated an exhibition in Venice presenting Jean Nouvel's architectural project for the Fondation Cartier's new headquarters as part of the collateral program of the 19th Venice Architecture Biennale. When she's not curating exhibitions for the Fondation Cartier, Béatrice writes books and essays about the intersection of art and contemporary architecture, such as Architecture for Culture, Rethinking Museums, which was published by Rizzoli last year, and Tashkent, A Modernist Capital, also published by Rizzoli in 2024. She's the Paris desk editor of Art Asia Pacific and a regular contributor to contemporary art and architecture publications such as Domus, Pinup, and the Journal of Curatorial Studies. Béatrice is a citizen of the world. She grew up in Montreal, has a Bachelor of Arts degree in Art History and East Asian Studies from McGill University, including a year as an exchange student at Shanghai Jiao Tong University, and went on to get a master's degree in art history from Columbia University. And I think it's been 6 years that she's been based in Paris. So Béatrice, we thank you for taking time for your busy schedule to be with us today to tell us about the making and remaking of the Fondation Cartier. À vous, Béatrice.
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak in this lecture series. Yeah, it's really an honor to include our institution, the Fondation Cartier, amongst the great museums across the centuries in France. Thank you as well for the introduction. Indeed, I have been living in France for 6 years now. I joined the Fondation Cartier in 2020, specifically to develop and lead the kind of curatorial transition of our institution towards this ambitious new venue, which I will tell you all about today. And I look forward to your questions at the end of my presentation. I'll be sure to end in time so that we can leave a bit of room for discussion. So I think it's important for me to begin with a kind of an introduction that will allow you to understand the context of the Fondation Cartier's recent transformation. As Russell mentioned in the beginning, we opened only 3 months ago at the end of the month of October in central Paris. So you see here, this is our new look, our new facade, which is really nested in between the Louvre Museum, as you see on the right-hand side, the Louvre Museum and the State Council and the Ministry of Culture. So, the Fondation Cartier is now really a stone's throw away from one of the most visited museums in the world. I believe the latest visitor numbers from the Louvre is 9 million. They had 9 million visitors last year. And so it's kind of a great responsibility and trajectory for a private foundation that was established in 1984 to be part of the sort of one of the most prestigious cultural circuits in the entire world. So we started off actually on the left bank of Paris, in a beautiful neighborhood, which is really renowned for the sort of kind of avant-garde history, artistic history of Paris, where you find a lot of artist studios that used to such as those of Simone de Beauvoir or Jean-Paul Sartre or Man Ray, Picasso, all had their studios in this 14th district where the Fondation Cartier had its first building. And it was in the early 90s that the Maison Cartier, so the company Cartier, decided to commission Jean Nouvel to build the headquarters of the Fondation Cartier. And it was really, from the beginning, an important gesture for the city of Paris to commission, Jean Nouvel, who was at the time really an emerging kind of architect. I mean, a bit of a rising star. He, at the time of the commission of to Jean Nouvel, had only recently completed the Institut du Monde Arabe, so the Arab World Institute in Paris, which really put him on the map as a kind of a starchitect figure in the late 80s. And so it was a very visionary kind of idea on behalf of the Maison Cartier to commission Jean Nouvel to create this building, and really gave him kind of free creative range to design something that could really symbolize what kind of infrastructure artists, contemporary artists, living artists could work with to create kind of cutting edge contemporary art. So the building was really a shock to the Parisian world, but also to the global contemporary art world, in the sense that it's really it was a glass cube with no white box, no walls, and complete transparency, giving on to this very beautiful garden. So for 30 years, the Fondation Cartier was based in this beautiful steel and glass building, and developed a mission to support contemporary creation in all its forms, including exhibitions and performance, and really a space of encounter for artistic experimentation. And operated, a growing program that became more and more ambitious over the years from this beautiful and really radical, I think we can say, architecture. So from the very beginning, the Fondation Cartier positioned itself in the cultural ecosystem in a quite unique way, in the sense that, as you see here on the screen, I wanted to start with this example of what kind of exhibitions the Fondation Cartier organized, which were, not your straightforward kind of, let's say, abstract painting exhibition, or it was really about finding the most um, creative and experimental disciplines in contemporary creation. So from the very early on, the Fondation Cartier programmed or commissioned exhibitions to not only, visual artists, so not only in painting or sculpture, but also fashion, craft, design, architecture, and even science. The Fondation Cartier is very committed to this kind of to giving support to artists who really operate and work in the fields of contemporary art that are a little bit forgotten by the traditional sort of spectrum of the museum, that tends to concentrate on practices that are perhaps a little bit more professionalized. So this is another example of an exhibition that the Fondation Cartier created, a thematic exhibition about, the abstraction in Latin American art, from Mexico to Patagonia. So an exhibition that took place in 2018. And here you see is a one-to-one scale model of a ballroom by Bolivian architect Freddy Mamani. So bringing to the exhibition space really the immersive experience of an architecture that you would find, in El Alto, in Bolivia. So within these spaces of that Jean Nouvel design, which, as you see here, on the picture, really allowed the Fondation Cartier to, in response to this very unique architecture, to develop a whole program that could be in response to the specificity of the exhibition conditions. And so here, this was an incredibly successful exhibition called Freeing Architecture, by Junya Ishigami, a Japanese architect who, was at the time kind of a young rising architect, and we gave him kind of carte blanche in the building, and he developed one-to-one scale models, and also was able to kind of create an exhibition that corresponded also to the garden beyond. Another beautiful example of the programming and the kind of site-specific programming that the Fondation Cartier developed is this exhibition that we created with Sarah Z, who is an American artist that a lot of you might know. And she had her first major exhibition back in the late 90s at the Fondation Cartier. It was her first kind of major presentation in Europe as a young, early 30s emerging artist. And she came back to the Fondation Cartier, some 20 years later, as a world-renowned superstar. And we commissioned her a second exhibition after all these years. So we really cultivated over the last 40 years this kind of very close relationship with artists who co-develop projects. So meaning that we tend to produce projects with artists. And this is very important and is very unique, and I'll talk a little bit about it even more so during the presentation. But it's really method of collaboration that few museums and fewer foundations kind of maintain today. Another example of topics that are very important in our program is the question of ecology and the importance of nature and human culture. So we have program exhibitions on life of the Yanomami people in the Amazon forest, but also in exhibitions on the architecture and the life of trees. So really bringing this question of landscape and nature at the center of our program is very, we believe, important. But we also, created entire solo exhibitions by very renowned artists. All of you probably know Damon Hirst, where we presented his latest experimentations in paintings. And so every time, we work with artists, we tend to commission scenographers or architects, designers to conceive a specific architecture for an exhibition. And this is something that is also very unique in our program, and we tend to emphasize because the spaces that Jean Nouvel had created for us, so the glass box, of course, had no walls. So for every exhibition, we had to create a very site-specific design. So this is a very beautiful example where we commissioned Mauricio Rocha, a Mexican architect, to design the walls of for the photography exhibition of the Mexican photographer Graciela Iturbide. So it really allowed the Fondation Cartier to over the years and before moving into an even more ambitious space, sort of start to develop a very conscientious material practice for exhibition making. So some of the most recent exhibitions before opening our new space was the solo exhibition of Ron Mueck, which was incredibly successful, as you can imagine, and Olga de Amaral, which was our very last exhibition at the Fondation Cartier on Boulevard Raspail. And I mention it not only because it was, a hugely important exhibition in terms of its impact in the art world. This was the first exhibition of this Colombian artist in continental Europe, but also because it then traveled to the ICA in Miami, where it also found an incredible success. And so I'll talk a little bit about how we partner with different institutions worldwide, but we were so proud to be able to share the work of this very important Colombian artist with the public with the audiences in Miami. So the Fondation Cartier not only programs exhibitions. As you have seen, we have a very ambitious kind of approach to contemporary art, which is not only limited to the visual arts, but we also have built over the years a collection. And this was one of the reasons or the impetus for opening and moving to a new location. Over the years, we've acquired over 4,000 artworks by over 500 artists from 50 different nationalities. So really a global kind of approach to contemporary art and to collecting. And this has been accomplished through, our collaboration with close collaboration with artists over the years and through the various strands of our programs. So exhibitions, talks, digital programs, publications, meaning that when we make acquisitions for our collections, we usually acquire works that we have commissioned or by artists that we have worked with in our exhibition program. So this is quite a different approach to collection building than acquiring artworks that already are circulating on the market. And we're quite proud of this means of supporting the creation by living artists. So the last kind of part of our program that I want to introduce before we move to the kind of most recent story of our move to this new location is our publication program, which is also a way for all of you to sort of enter into the program of the Fondation Cartier. These are the most recent publications. Russell mentioned in the introduction, Architecture for Culture, which I wrote and just came out last fall, which is really about the role of architecture in the creation of cultural policy of museums. And these two publications, the Fondation Cartier by Jean Nouvel. So this is really a deep dive into the new architecture of the Fondation Cartier. So amazing kind of process shots and beautiful images of the architecture, and then the catalog of the inaugural exhibition, which I will introduce. But these publications are distributed worldwide, and it's really a way through which we hope our program can find interest to global audiences. So in 2025, we really turned a page to a new chapter of our institution, as I mentioned. So we had been based on the left bank, as you see here on this image. Obviously, Paris is not as is a very dense city. It's not a sprawl like like Chicago or like LA or Miami, where it's a very dense city. And whilst things may seem close to one another, because there is so much culture, and we're so lucky to be in a city that has such a dynamic engagement with culture, old and new. Still, the Fondation Cartier, on the one hand side, felt like it had outgrown its spaces, and on the other, it also felt like the museum infrastructure that had evolved so much, from a global standpoint over the last decades. Museums have become not only spaces to show art, but are also a crucial infrastructure in a city to provide spaces for learning, spaces for community engagement, spaces even for entertainment in a cultural sense. So it felt a little bit like the Fondation Cartier had such a dynamic program, had such a wide reach in terms of the kind of a diversity and global, visibility of our program, but yet our spaces, for example, lacked an auditorium or lacked, a restaurant, and lacked, proper spaces to host sort of education activities for kids, classrooms, that kind of infrastructure that, audiences now, and rightfully so, expect out of museums. And, Cartier as Enrichment as a group, we're really motivated to continue to support the Fondation Cartier in this transition into more adapted, museum infrastructure. So this was a long kind of story of finding, the appropriate new venue for the Fondation Cartier. Of course, it didn't happen overnight, as you can imagine, finding a location for a cultural institution that had already a very established position in the city of Paris, and in the city of Paris, precisely a city where there is very little room for building new infrastructure. So we were no longer in the early 90s configuration. It's very difficult to obtain construction permits, as you can imagine, in a city, in a museum city filled with museums. So it took about the discussions to expand the Fondation Cartier was started um, around 10 or even almost 15 years prior to our final move last October, to our opening last October. But in 2018, we identified the location, and there couldn't be a better one, right? Next to the Louvre, in front of one of the oldest public squares in Paris, in between, the Royal Gardens, and the Jardin des Tuileries. So it was really, unquestionable that this was the right place for the Fondation Cartier. But then the question was, what to do, because this is a building that could not be, of course, demolished. The facade is protected. But inside it had undergone some significant renovation in the last since the 70s. And so it also wasn't up for sale. So it was a very complex kind of negotiation to obtain permits to have significant freedom within the walls, to be able to commission an architect who could, find the freedom to do something that would be truly extraordinary and match the kind of ambition that the Fondation Cartier already had demonstrated back in the early 90s, and had continued to step up to, so to speak, in terms of its program in the last 3 decades of being based in this glass building. So we went back to Jean Nouvel and commissioned him the extraordinary task of how to, on the one hand side, modernize a building that was built in 1855 and originally, but also to build the circumstances for a completely new condition of exhibition making, and new museographic conditions. So the building has an extremely interesting history. It was first built as a hotel. It was the Grand Hôtel du Louvre. And it was built during the first World Expo in Paris that took place in 1855. And it was an incredibly dynamic moment, period where the city modernized, and the city was competing with London to host world exhibitions. So back in the 19th century, this was considered an extremely modern building. And it was a hotel for a very brief moment, but then became a department store for 100 years. So it was always, in many ways, a building that was destined to showcase, objects or artifacts, and welcome a significant group of city dwellers. And in the last sort of 50 years of its occupation, the building was yet again another uh, uh, destination for showcasing artifacts. It was an antique marketplace, and was kind of divided up into all of these small galleries, and was a very popular sort of marketplace for antiques. And so it was a kind of an extraordinary task for Jean Nouvel, because he needed to, in many ways, revert the building back to one of its periods, which was its exploitation as a department store. Originally the building was really commissioned, as I was saying, during this Haussmannian period of modernization of the city. And so inherently, the building had features that allowed for it to have this very intense communication with the city. So the series of arcades that you see on this picture really allowed for kind of pedestrians to walk all around the building and gaze into the shop windows and be safe from any rain or kind of meteorological condition, and also be very sort of visible from within the building. I mean, the city would be very visible from within the building, but also every passerbys could really understand what was going on within that building during this century of being a department store. And so Jean Nouvel really wanted to bring these architectural features back, and make them very visible to intensify the connection between the building and the city. Of course, with the intent that this building, even though it's a historical architecture, a limestone facade. It should be, visible and inviting, and also be a natural continuity between the public urban space. As you see here, the Place du Palais Royal was up until fairly recently in the 70s a parking lot. But it was always, prior to that, 100 years prior, a very dynamic place of intersection between the Louvre and the Royal Gardens. So you have to imagine that, this was really a central kind of space of exchange, not only commercial. Any sort of marketplace is also a place of exchange of ideas, of intense sort of communication, of intensification of interaction with city life. So Jean Nouvel really wanted to recover those aspects of the building and make it a place where the Fondation Cartier could find this, immediately find this connection with the city. So we announced this intention to be a foundation that is expanding, but yet remains approachable, remains in direct contact with the city very early on during the construction of the project, by commissioning this installation to Jean Nouvel on the square, on the Place du Palais Royal. And he very cleverly designed a kind of an installation of mirrors to hide the scaffolds. And so it allowed this kind of incredible illusion and continuity of the architecture, the historical architecture surrounding throughout. But what was truly sort of a breakthrough, and why we went ahead with this very ambitious what ended up being a 5-year-long construction project, which was completely invisible, because as you see here on the section cut of the building, we couldn't touch anything inside the building. It was the scope of the project was really an interior transformation and renovation. But to answer the kind of challenge of, modernizing a building, but also creating a completely new way to make exhibitions. So inventing a new museography. Uh, what Jean Nouvel proposed was to design a system of 5 movable platforms that can be adjusted to different heights for any different kind of exhibition design. So as you see here, so this is the sort of lobby of the building. Again, this is a section cut, so what you're seeing is the volume. And then as we're moving, as you see, here are the 5 platforms. So these are the floors that can also, depending on the configuration, be ceilings for suspension. So what happens is when you change the design of the platforms, when you adjust them to different heights, different volumes are created. So it looks a little bit like this. If you change the configuration, you can decide to make some black boxes, or transform the space completely to adapt to your exhibition design. Or again, a completely different exhibition idea would require a totally different position of the platforms. As you see as well in this section cut, I love this image because you can see really clearly what's going on in the building. You have all of the different temporalities of the building. You really see that as a whole, this is actually very faithful to the architectural condition of Paris, where you have um, something that looks Haussmannian or dated from the 19th century on the outside, but in reality, inside the building, it's a whole different series of kind of a cadavre exquis of different periods of architecture. The first courtyard of the building is the one that is most faithful to the original 19th century architecture, whereas the other two courtyards were completely gutted and renovated in the 1970s. And what Jean Nouvel did was very beautiful idea. He proposed to introduce suspended gardens in these courtyards. So you have this kind of sedimentation of temporalities, including, a very beautiful reference to, of course, the royal gardens across the street, or a reference to, um, the original environment of the Fondation Cartier, when it was on the left bank, and as you saw, used to be surrounded by a garden. So this dynamic architecture, as we call it, so this system of 5 movable platforms, is really an incredible leap into the future of museographic design, because it allows for a different to conceive the exhibition together with the architecture. But it also means that for every exhibition, you're also designing the wayfinding anew. And of course, this means that, it's impossible to have complete control of the pathways that the visitors take inside the building. So there's this kind of incredible liberty that's given to audiences as they discover the building and discover the exhibition. But it's also an incredible architectural experience every time as you discover a novel interpretation of the architecture of the building. So this is a view that I absolutely love, because you see the very modern infrastructure that was inserted in the building, but you're also gazing out onto the facade of the Louvre and seeing, the sort of urban activity. So it's really the desire to bring, the city and the building, and the building into the heart of the city of Paris. So these are just a few views of this really ambitious museographic tool or device that allows these amazing 360-degree views onto exhibitions, and incredible natural light that comes into the building. The beautiful and intense contrast that you have between this kind of dense machinery, but also the little details that are allowed to punctuate your visit of an exhibition, the leaves of the trees hanging above, or the original limestone of the original arcades of the building, will guarantee this kind of impression of a dynamic architecture that isn't just mechanical, but that is also really changing with the seasons, the light, and that is also truly a mutating architecture that can adapt to the creativity of the artists of our time. So the feat of this architectural project is not only, the engineering dimension of these platforms that were inserted in the building, but it's also this the details of uniting for the first time on the entire range of the Rue Rivoli, which is of course one of the most famous boulevards in Paris. A single architectural program on the ground floor of a building on that this part in on this boulevard. So usually you would find different kind of restaurants or tourist shops or commercial activities, but we are the only single kind of cultural institution on the ground floor of this whole segment of the city. And Jean Nouvel wanted to highlight this by introducing, with a lot of difficulty, a modification to the facade, which is historically protected. This beautiful glass awning, which signals, the presence of the Fondation Cartier on this entire length of the city's block. And you find really surprising and beautiful details in the colors of the architecture. This is the first time that the Fondation Cartier has had an auditorium. So it's been fun to test it out in these recent weeks. So the planification of the inaugural exhibition was a great feat because we wanted to signal the kind of new chapter of the Fondation Cartier by bringing together all of the elements of its DNA, both past and new, and also embrace this historical architecture in which we we're moving to. So we decided to play on the history of the building as a concept for our inaugural show, which is a presentation of our collection. So we really played on this idea that the building housed a department store for over a century and was called the Magasin du Louvre. And so we decided to, inaugurate the exhibition with the building with an exhibition that was called Exposition Générale. So the Magasin du Louvre used to organize precisely what were called Exposition Générale. So you can see here on the facade of the building, the department store used to organize what were these immense kind of cultural but also commercial events that brought together all the kind of new fashions, new domestic technologies, objects, and there was this kind of proliferation of production of materials and prints and catalogs surrounding these sales, which were so kind of sought after. So we decided to sort of renew with this euphoria of this Exposition Générale, so general exhibition, and commissioned Format Fantasma exhibition designers to play with this history and materialize the spirit of the Exposition Générale, which were really kind of democratic ways of showing artifacts. And here you have this kind of sign of the Exposition Générale. So we based our whole sort of communication and graphic campaign and inspiration on this concept of the Exposition Générale. And working with the designers, exhibition designers, Format Fantasma was so crucial because, in this incredible new machinery that we had, these platforms, it was essential to kind of figure out how to create, these new kind of exhibition display systems in the building. So They invented very ingeniously these kind of lighting devices and textile to be able to highlight the kind of didactic materials of the exhibition. So I'm just being mindful of the time. So the exhibition was incredibly waited upon because the Fondation Cartier had never shown to this extent the collection in Paris, and we really decided to focus on the four great themes of our collection of our program across the last 40 years. And so the exhibition is this general exhibition of our collection that traces through 40 years of contemporary creation and of working together with artists in commissioning new works. So the first section that introduces the exhibition is called Machine d'Architecture. So it's really this whole part of the collection that addresses, the work with designers, architects, and artists who have at the heart of their practice this thinking about urbanism and architecture. So it's 3D and one-to-one scale models and entire sort of utopian visions of architecture, as you see here in the background, and here this very beautiful speculation of Kinshasa of the third millennium by Congolese artist Bosik Isekingeres, or other more abstract interpretations of art of architecture, such as the work you see here by Absalon or Mamadou Cissé, and or again a very beautiful theoretical notion of what is architecture by the Italian designer Andrea Branzi, a work that we commissioned to him back in 2008 and that we subsequently acquired. Again, here we have a version of the ballroom that we had shown on the left bank in our old building, here in the double height spaces. The second chapter of the exhibition, let's say it's called Being Nature, Être Nature, and all of these titles of the different chapters of the exhibition are former exhibitions that were organized at the Fondation Cartier. So we're really citing, really key parts of our program. And this, which I introduced earlier, this thinking around ecology and around highlighting the work of artists who are based in, working based in forests, for example, the work of Shironawe Haki-Iwe, and or others such as Giuseppe Pinone. So putting together really the importance of the practices of artists who are at the front line of either environments that are endangered from an ecological perspective, or simply to highlight the crucial role that, the encyclopedia of nature, so to say, has to play in human culture. The third kind of great chapter of our collection is this notion of making things that we call, so this idea of arts and crafts. So here you see very beautiful monumental work by Olga de Amaral, so the artist that was presented at the ICA in Miami last year. And other artists who, on smaller scale, work with this notion of crafts. So here you see beautiful ceramics by artist Gustavo Perez. And final chapter of the exhibition is called Un monde réel, so one real world, which is really diving into the part of our collection that explores the relationship between the scientific research and scientific imagination together with contemporary practices. So here you have a work by Elizabeth Diller, so the architecture firm Diller Scofidio Renfro, and a work by Sarah Z that I introduced earlier, who really work at the intersection of research, science, and aesthetics. So to conclude, I wanted to kind of open up to our this whole dimension of our program, which um, is international but also very Parisian. We like to think of the program and the whole mandate of the Fondation Cartier as being really international in vision and in scope, and we regularly partner with institutions all around the world because we strongly believe that no single cultural institution can represent fully the diversity and heterogeneity of artistic practices, and that we hope that the Fondation Cartier can really be not only in Paris, but through, partnerships and through the interaction of in partnership with different museums, can really build an incredibly rich and diverse program. So here you have an example of one of our partnerships with the Sydney Opera House and the Biennial of Sydney. We have a very dynamic program in Milan where we with the Triennale Milano, create one or two exhibitions every year. Russell mentioned the exhibition that I worked on at the Venice Biennial last year. And again, we have regularly programs in Asia. This is an example of our program in Tokyo, again in Milan. So you will find us in 2026 all over the world. Our exhibition of Andrea Branzi opens at the Triennale Milano in March. We will also be in Japan, Tokyo, with an exhibition opening in April, and in LA with a conference happening on February 21st, 2026. We will be back in Sydney and in Venice, but most importantly, also we will be back in Miami at the Institute of Contemporary Art with a very beautiful exhibition by the important artist and Venezuela-based Yanomami artist Shironawe Hakiyue. So I hope that you will all connect with us in Miami or online or through our books or by visiting our new location in Paris sometime in 2026. I'd love to answer some questions or just open up the discussion if we still have a bit of time remaining.
So thank you very much, Beatrice, for that wonderful presentation. First of all, those are terrific images, and there's nothing better than, whoops, okay. There's nothing better than seeing pictures when you're talking about architecture and art in general. So well, that was great stuff. And thank you for drawing attention too to the fact that you will be having an exhibition in Miami at the end of this year, as you have had, I guess, just last year as well.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so we should, particularly as the the Alliance Française Miami Metro, we should promote that exhibition, and we will.
Thank you.
So we had a number of questions. First of all, a lot of people remember fondly the building on the Boulevard Raspail.
Oh, okay, good.
And the question is, what's going to happen to that wonderful building?
That's always the question. We actually never owned this building. We did commission the architect, but under agreement with the owners at the time. So it is really up to the Groupama, the owners, to decide what will happen. Luckily, the ground floor is registered as mandatory sort of cultural institution. So the owners have to find some cultural institution to be uh interested and willing to operate the premises.
Well, it was designed to be a museum by Jean Nouvel, correct?
Yes, yeah. Yes, but there are 8 stories of offices above, so
So
it's not it's a multi-use multi-purpose building.
so it could be an office building with an extremely impressive atrium, possibly. Okay.
Yes. I mean the sorry, just to be specific, the Fondation Cartier never occupied the whole building up until like 3 years ago. Actually, we for almost the entirety of the time we're only on 3 or 4 stories, and there was always other offices cohabitating.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've moved to this magnificent new building on the Place du Palais Royal. How does the surface area of this new building compare with the surface area on the Boulevard Raspail?
So in terms of exhibition space, it's about sevenfold. So we went from
Oh,
1,200 to a bit less than 12, about 1,000 square meters to about 7,000 square meters of exhibition space, and that's not including the cafe, the restaurant, the bookstore, auditorium, classrooms. So in total,
right.
it's a lot.
It's a lot. Okay. It is a spectacular location. There's no doubt about it. And you drew our attention to it, but I love the building that Jean Nouvel built in the square on the west side of the building that was covered with mirrors. You showed a couple of pictures of it, but it was really spectacular. You look at
Mm,
this mirror building and you're not quite sure what was going on. It was
yeah.
a wonderful optical illusion.
Yes.
Uh, and so just to clarify, the five movable platforms literally go up and down.
Yes. So it's a fairly simple system of cables and pulleys. So it's not a technologically sort of huge advancement. But it's truly a feat of engineering because it means that you had to from a weight standpoint, really introduce this kind of flexibility because of course these platforms need to be weight bearing. Um, so um, so you can decide that all of them will be on the ground floor, or then all of them will be on the first floor. So it really, as a visitor, but also as a curator, when you work with the space or enter into it for different projects, it'll look completely different.
Wow, quite exciting. Sounds a little bit like a theater set. It
Yes,
has
it's a there's this ambiguity between exhibition and theater making.
uh-huh. And this is what is called museography, which is a great word. So you mentioned that you're going to carry on with the inaugural exhibition through the end of August,
Yes.
which I'm looking forward to seeing. Um, and then will there be another exhibition later in the year?
Yes, absolutely. It's only the beginning of the story of this new building. We are opening in mid-October an exhibition of Tamale Ghana born based artist Ibrahim Mahama called The Harvest Season.
Okay. And so just going forward, is that kind of the rhythm that there will be two exhibitions a year?
Um, it will be 2 to 3 exhibitions per year. Yeah.
Okay. And always commissioned art.
There's the ambition to continue to commission art for, I mean, not the entire exhibitions necessarily, but yes, to
Mhm.
commission artists and give the opportunity to create new work.
Okay. Well, it's remarkable. I mean, I think I jotted down 4,000 artworks by 500 artists from
Yes,
50 countries, was it?
yes,
So that's quite a collection that you've amassed over the past 40 years, and quite a variety too. And you highlighted the fact that it's not just art in the terms of paintings or sculptures, the classical, what we think of as contemporary art. Would you
yes.
say that that's kind of your unique selling point, is that you go beyond the traditional contemporary art museum into these different ways of expression?
Yes, it's definitely something that we are very attached to and proud of, and that makes us different from other I think foundations, but even museums. And also I think um it makes us also complementary, I would say, to either historical museums or other even state museums, like you other museums that are presented in your lecture series, like the Pompidou, for example, that really has this sort of national mandate to represent the story of modernism. But in terms of the Fondation Cartier, it's the approach is maybe, okay, well, what has modernism or what has contemporary art left out of the story? And there's a reason of being
Mhm.
for a private foundation in this regard.
Mhm. So you were giving a talk on behalf of private foundations in our series here. So we have the presidential museums, which all, interestingly enough, well, that's not true. Uh, so they represent different types of art, but they're all art museums. And but you're representing private foundations, most of which are contemporary art museums,
Mhm.
interestingly, at least the big ones. And I'd like to just explore a little bit what it means to be a foundation. Could you explain how you are funded and how operating as a foundation impacts your museography and the kind of museum you are?
Yeah. I think it's quite of it's an eternal topic in France. I think the structure of cultural institutions is very different, and traditionally, you know, uh, I mean, the Ministry of Culture and public funding has been quite important in France for cultural institutions. But what was really particular about the Fondation Cartier was really the leader in terms um, of corporate sponsorship for the arts. And the Fondation Cartier, when it was founded in 1984, back then our president, who was at the time the CEO of the brand Cartier, worked together with lawmakers in France to invent a corporate sponsorship law that could allow for corporations to to allocate parts of their budgets, and of course have tax incentives to do so, to to the purchase and promotion of art. So this is very important because it didn't exist prior to the Fondation Cartier's contribution to this field, and this gave way to obviously the creation of other private foundations and institutions. But beyond that, most importantly, I think what it allowed for was truly a diversification and a professionalization of the cultural sector in France, meaning that when a whole industry becomes more professionalized and has more diversity, this is the very familiar story of increasing sort of opportunity and also ambition for this sector, right? So it created really, I think, almost like a competitive sort of field, let's say, where there were more opportunities for artists to uh, to produce work, to show work, to be acquired by different typologies of institutions, and of course create a much more diverse ecosystem of culture. So we were the first to sort of pioneer this kind of law and opportunity, and we were, let's say, the latest or last to sort of expand and really join the kind of I guess yeah, big players, let's say, in terms of cultural infrastructure in the first district of Paris.
Well, you are definitely in the big three now. You were before, but now you've moved to the epicenter of the museum world. You're the epicenter of Paris in the first
Hmm.
arrondissement, right next to a well-known museum that's got 9 million visitors a year, and probably a few of them will go across the street and visit the Fondation
Yes,
Cartier as well.
exactly. That's the bet.
So I think we'll have to wrap it up here, but I want to thank you so much, Beatrice, for your
Thank you.
excellent presentation. We really
Thank you
enjoyed
very
it.
much. Thank you for the invitation and keep in touch.
Well, and we want to thank our partners for their support and for our spectators, our participants out there today. And we hope to see you next week, a week from today, same time, same place, when Alexandre Gadi will tell us what it takes to create the Musée du Grand Siècle, the Museum of the Great Century of Louis XIV and the other Bourbon kings, because it's a rather broad definition of Grand Siècle, the Great
Mm.
Century, how to create a museum from scratch, which is very interesting subject. And attention, Alexandre's presentation will be in French, but as you may know, each viewer can configure his or her Zoom screen to have captions simultaneously translated into English. So we hope you will tune in next week to Alexandre's presentation. Thank you again, Beatrice, and we
Thank
wish
you.
you all an au revoir.
Bye bye. Thank you so much.